So, I used to work from 4 p.m. to 12:25 a.m., and before I accepted these hours, my brother agreed to take me home each day. Well, he slacked off on that deal numerous times, and I was left to walk/skate home late at nights. I could have taken a taxi, but I just didn't really want to pay. These trips from work to my house would take up to an hour or an hour and a half, depending on how lazy I was feeling. The road I took was pretty simple. It was a straight route, but it was through one of the scariest/most ghetto parts of Phoenix, Arizona. I was already in a bad mood, because my brother had once again bailed on being my ride. By the way, this was a few years ago, roughly 3 or 4. I'm making my way home. I've been on foot already for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm about to go underneath the freeway. I noticed a car coming my way. No big deal. People are always up, no matter what the time. I just kept walking, when I look up and notice the driver is staring right at me. He was driving, but his head and eyes were focused on me. I figured it was no big deal, just some guy being weird. He drives about 50 feet, when he suddenly does a U-turn and comes back my way. My heart drops, and I realize that I could actually be in real danger. Again, I look, and as he drives by me, his eyes are strictly focused on me. He speeds up and drives ahead. I stare at the car, hoping he's just going to leave, but no. He makes a left turn into a bank's parking lot and shuts off his lights. I'm on the side of the road nearer to him, and I just kept walking. My eyes were searching for him, and I had to keep him in my sight. I kept walking. Luckily, there was a low-cut wall and some dirt to space out the parking lot he was in and the sidewalk I was on apart. I walked for about a minute or so when I noticed the car parked right there by the wall. I could see the shape of a man. The door opens and he quickly gets out of his car. I know now he had some awful intentions for me. I run and jump on my skateboard and push the hardest I can and the fastest my feet allowed me. I hear the man yelling at me, and I see him quickly get into his car and start the engine. I skate the fastest I can to an empty intersection. He drives by me, always keeping those eyes on me. He speeds ahead, and again he takes a turn somewhere in the distance. This time, I stay at a post office, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't have a phone, and all I could think of was how I could get out of this one. I knew he was waiting for me up ahead. I decided at this point to go back and go up across a bridge to a gas station. I kept a lookout for his car, but he wasn't around. At the gas station, I decided not to use the phone. I can't remember why anymore, and just used a different route going home. I finally arrived at about 3 a.m., go to the kitchen, see my brother's television on, and then I just go to my room, sleep, and pretend it was all a nightmare. I wonder what the man wanted from me. I was 19 then. My hair was somewhat long, but I still looked like a guy. It was pretty clear I had no money, or why else would I be skating home at such an odd time? I skated home a few more times after that, but I never did see that man again.
So let me start off by saying I move around a lot in between Southern California and Arizona. At the time of this, December 2015, I was still living in Southern California, at my grandma's apartments. I had gotten a part-time job at Toys R Us to do something with my time and to learn some people skills. I'm a 24-year-old girl and have some pretty extreme social anxiety and find it really hard to talk to people, so I figured this job would help. Another important thing to mention, My grandmother is on a government program with reduced housing costs and has a 2-bedroom apartment ever since my grandfather passed. But due to the annual checks at her complex, she is supposed to be the only inhabitant of her dwelling. So technically I was not supposed to be living there with her, but she liked the help and the company, and I liked being rent-free. Now, since I wasn't supposed to be there, I technically had to sneak around, and most definitely couldn't park on the parking grounds of the complex as it would draw attention. There was a cemetery across the street from the complex, and then half a mile of houses leading down the street next to the cemetery, along which most of the visitors of the house/apartments nearby, including myself, parked. I was getting free rent and staying with my grandma, which was awesome to me. Even if it meant I had to usually park half a mile away from the complex, I didn't mind the walk. So all was well for a few months, from when I got the job in October, minus a scary incident with the stalker at work. I'll leave that story for another time. But eventually, they started putting up night shifts, which I definitely did not mind since I tend to be a night owl. Also, if you've ever been on a closed shift at any retail store, you'll know you can easily stay an hour or two overtime after the store closes doing reshop during the holiday season. It was early December at the time. I ended up getting off of work past 2 a.m. Around this hour, at this time of year, in this part of SoCal, the mist gets unbearably thick, to the point of having to drive 30 miles per hour down the highway with your brights on and still being unable to see a foot or two in front of the car. Tonight was one of those nights. I wasn't too bothered by it at that time, but it does set off my anxiety a little bit. So by the time I got home, it took me nearly 20 minutes to find a parking space. I was pretty anxious. Of course, with my luck, I parked at the very end of the half-mile stretch. Now, it's kind of a tradition of mine to get out of the car, close the door, and linger near my car for a minute while I audibly stretch a bit and sometimes complain, "Fuck today sucked," etc. It's just a little habit thing I do, and tonight was no different. I immediately, after tucked my purse under my arm, turned on my phone flashlight and stuck it in front of my face to see where I was going because the fog was so thick I couldn't see a foot in front of my face. I had walked in this weather many times before, so I knew my way home. A straight shot walk for half a mile and a sharp turn left at the end of the cemetery, then crossing the street and into the gated complex. So I was on my merry way until I heard a loud, almost obnoxious cough and footsteps. My alert mode set in, and I instantly started walking faster and trying to be quieter about my movements. Call me paranoid, but I've had a fair number of let's not meet moments, and I certainly wasn't keen on meeting a stranger walking behind me, especially given the fact that I can't see a foot in front of my face, even with streetlights and my phone light. This continues for a few minutes, with the occasional cough behind me, and then I hear a whistle, the kind catcallers do, which bewilder me because, 1, you can't see shit. Since you can't see shit in this weather, I assume the person is purposefully intimidating me, at which point I give up on walking and break into a run. The steps behind me break into a full-blown run, and I hear panting. Clearly the dude isn't in the best shape. Neither am I, but the run didn't win me as bad. By now I'm speed walking next to the cemetery, and for some godforsaken reason, my panicked mind tells me it would be better to duck into the cemetery and hide instead of walking the straight shot home. Had there been no fog, I would have had a clear view of my grandma's apartment from the area in the cemetery where I stood. I quickly hid and crouched behind the entrance post to the cemetery gates, and I knew I fucked up, because his footsteps stopped too, and I could tell he knew I was hiding because of the lack of audible footsteps. I crouched there for what seemed like 10 minutes, too scared to turn on my phone for fear of him being close enough to see the light and find me, and too scared to make a run for it, for fear that he was intently listening out for me. I had figured out he was standing probably 5 to 10 feet from where I was, at the entrance driveway to the cemetery right before the gates, which was confirmed when after a minute I heard his voice say, "I know you're there, sweetheart." I heard the distant sound of a lighter being struck, and then smelled cigarette smoke. Figured the dude was focused on his cigarette, and I made a run for it across the cemetery, somehow not tripping over any graves, all while intently trying to listen behind me. The cemetery's main entrance was wrought iron fencing, but the back and the right end is wooden and serves as a separator between the cemetery and the backyard of various houses, and the other side, which is in front of my grandmother's apartment, is chain link. There is no other entrance or exit to the cemetery, but I know the chain link fence doesn't go all the way to the ground, so I laid on my stomach, pushed the fence out and up, wriggled across and ran directly across the street to my grandma's house, pounding on her door until she opened. I don't know how this dude found me. He must have been standing around nearby as I parked and heard me complain to myself loudly when I got out of the car. But either way, that was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. So creepy stalker guy in South San Diego who likes to come out of the mist and terrify women at 3 a.m. Let's never meet again.
Walking alone at night with headphones on and without a cell phone as a female is probably considered a stupid thing to do, but I've been walking and running at night ever since I was 13 or 14. I was naive at first, probably, and have become even more complacent because I've never had any bad experiences doing so. I grew up in a small town, and I'm not a morning person. I always just enjoyed exercising at night, less cars on the road, and a good way to wind down before bed and think about my day. So this evening, it was approximately 8:30 p.m. I was out for a walk going up a hill towards a pretty uninhabited part of my route. I live in a newer subdivision that's being developed in a wooded area near a lake and towards the rural part of town. So it's a semi-residential, semi-rural area, if that makes any sense. Lots of houses set far back from the street. Lots of fields in this part of town. I noticed the street had been lit up for an unusually long time. Usually the road is pretty dark. From behind me. I turned around and saw a car creeping along at a snail's pace behind me. I got a weird feeling, but thought maybe he was just looking for a house address or something, so I kept walking. The driver and sole occupant of the vehicle, an older guy in maybe his mid-40s with glasses on, was now driving right beside me at a crawl, like 5 kilometers per hour. I started to panic, but still gave him the benefit of the doubt. I gave the man a confused look in hopes to realize he was a normal dude, just lost in the neighborhood. But he met my stare coolly, with no emotion at all on his face. This is when I clued into the fact that, yes, bad things can and do happen, and that was likely what was occurring now. I immediately did a 180 and started walking the other direction. I looked back to see he had pulled into a driveway. Relieved, I thought maybe he had reached his destination and that I was just being paranoid all along. Then, the sinking feeling in my stomach when I saw him back out of the driveway to continue following directly alongside me. This is when my adrenaline kicked in. My subconscious was screaming, "No murder's going to happen tonight." I booked it at lightning speed into a side street that connects the street I was on to the street I lived on, and jumped into the first lawn I saw and dove into a hedge. I removed my high visibility vest I wear for night runs and shoved it under my black hoodie and watched him through the leaves. He drove up and down the street several more times, looking in my direction. I was hyperventilating now and debating what I should do. I thought about knocking on this person's door, whose bush I was hiding in, but the urge to just get the hell away was too strong. I waited until I didn't see him drive by for at least 15 minutes. Then, I decided I had enough adrenaline to run home. I was only about a 7-minute walk away, and I decided I could make it in 3. So instead of walking on the sidewalk, I ran through people's lawns in case I saw the car again. I could maybe get into a neighbor's door for help that way. I have never run so fast in my life. I was hyperventilating when I got home. These weird, short, gasping breaths of fear. I'm a runner, so the run itself wouldn't have affected me in that way. I was bright red and shaking and called my mom immediately. I've never posted on Reddit before, but I'm finding myself in a weird mental state. I'm sharing this for myself, to work out what happened. Like, perhaps it was a misunderstanding, and he was just harmless. But I'm on high alert right now, and can't sleep. My roommate just opened her door, and I jumped about a foot out of my seat. Basically, what I learned is this. If you're a female especially, don't wear headphones on your walks and runs. Don't go alone. Bring your phone, or walk during daylight hours during busy times. This sort of thing can happen to anybody, and it's not a situation you want to be in. It's pretty terrifying. Right now, I'm so happy I'm safe at home, but I keep thinking, what if I had kept walking up the hill, into the darkness? Some people truly do have evil intentions, and my gut feeling was that this guy was up to no good. What's up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end. I'd also like to thank my special guest, Slumlocker, for being willing to collaborate with me this episode. He and I actually did a story swap, so you can go ahead and go to his channel and check out the collaboration I did with him that will be hosted on his channel either today or tomorrow. In addition to that, I also recently did a collaboration with Let's Read, and that's been posted on his channel already. That's a bunch of black-eyed kid stories, so if you guys are into that, I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. In addition to this, I'd like to give a special shout out to my artist friend, who's done both the banner and the profile picture for this account. His name is Aro Kata, I believe that's how you pronounce it, but if I'm incorrect, please forgive me. I'll leave a link to his stuff in the description below. He's a really good artist, and he's got some really cool speed drawing stuff on there. He's even got a speed draw episode of him drawing the profile picture for this channel. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and check him out. As always, links to my social media will be in the description below. This includes my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. If you have a story you'd like me to read, or a story you'd like to send in, please feel free to send a message on any of those, and I'll respond and put it in a video as soon as possible, hopefully. If you do decide to send in a story, please feel free to include a tagline of how you'd like me to credit you for the story, and if there's any theme to the story, go ahead and put that in there as well. If you have any constructive criticism, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. For those of you who said that the volume was still a little bit too low, I raised it up one notch. Let me know if that's better. I think it should be good now. So hopefully that's okay now when I fix that problem. Thank you guys for the feedback. If you guys liked the video, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to leave a like. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.